Hello, Pontiac High School students. This is lesson 3-6A, the first part of looking at the role of the House of Representatives in creating a law, or how a bill becomes a law. Now, the first step here is the introduction of a bill. And every term, there are about 10,000 bills that are proposed. That's a lot of potential laws. And we've got to figure out how to filter through these and find out which ones will actually become laws. Now, first a bill is proposed. It's proposed in the House and the Senate. But only some of these are written by representatives and senators. Bills can be written by anybody. Absolutely anybody. You can write a bill if you want. Can only be introduced or proposed by a representative or a senator. But frequently these bills are written by the executive branch, by the president, by the people, by people like you and me, or by corporations and businesses or other special interests. Now, types of bills and resolutions. Bills are laws that can apply to the nation as a whole or to a single individual. Okay? Bills are anything that is legislation. Joint resolutions have the force of law, but usually only cover temporary issues. A joint resolution is something that both the House and the Senate agree to, but are very temporary, very limited. Concurrent resolutions state the opinion of Congress, but are not law. So sometimes Congress will simply say, this is our opinion on a particular issue, and we want to publicly acknowledge this, but it's not actually law. Those can sometimes be important in guiding the nation and guiding national discussion, and sometimes can just be silly and distractions. But bills and resolutions can also have riders that are unrelated. So riders are something we need to be aware of, particularly in election season, because somebody might support a bill, but it has a rider on this other issue. And if they vote in support of the bill, sometimes an opponent in an election will say that was a vote in favor of the rider. So be careful about those, because sometimes unrelated stuff does appear on resolutions. Now, the first reading of a bill is important. Bills and resolutions are named according to where they were when they were introduced and the order in which it was introduced. So example here is HR 3410 would be a House resolution, House of Representatives, HR House of Representatives, and it was the 3,410th bill to be considered by the House in that particular term. The House or the Senate clerks introduce these bills before it then gets assigned to a committee by the Speaker. So in the House of Representatives, the Speaker of the House is going to look at it and say, all right, this primarily deals with agriculture and farming, so it's going to go to the Standing Committee on Agriculture. It's the Speaker of the House or somebody in his office that will make that determination. Now, once the bill is in the committee, the committees are going to quickly look through those bills and they're going to filter out a lot of them. A lot of bills don't even really go up for debate in these committees. They just simply are never discussed and therefore they die. So the Agriculture Committee, they might see 400 bills in a term, and they're not going to take the time to seriously look at and debate all of those. Some of them they'll simply right away say, right now we're the Republican Party, and generally speaking on agriculture, we support these sorts of issues, and this bill proposed by a Democratic congressman from Iowa is not going to make it through this committee. We don't need to debate it. We don't need to discuss it. It's not going to make it. So they simply never schedule it for a debate, never gets talked about, can never pass the committee, and therefore can never become law. Most bills die this death. Now, when you have a discharge petition, that can force the committee to send the bill to the floor. So sometimes the the Speaker of the House or the Rules Committee might rule that a bill is important enough that the committee has to send it to the floor for a debate, whether or not that committee really approves it. This is very rarely done, doesn't happen very much. Usually if a committee doesn't approve of a bill, it simply dies. So what does a bill do when it actually what does a committee do when it actually considers a bill? Well, the chairman first decides when the committee will debate the bill. Okay, so the chairman has a lot of power there. When are we going to debate HR 3410? The committees are then broken into subcommittees with members focusing their attention on a specific area of law. So this is not just on agriculture, but it specifically deals with who has patent rights over genetically modified seeds. All right, well, you three subcommittee members, you kind of have been focusing on this area of patent law, so you guys focus on this for a little while. And they'll kind of work through it and determine whether or not it's a good bill that they support. And again, the subcommittees are going to have a majority from the majority political party, so it's all going to work its way through the political system that way. Now, on important bills, the committee might hold a public hearing. That is where people can come in and have their say, and these are frequently recorded and broadcasted on C-SPAN, and nobody ever watches them, but they're there for the public consumption if you wanted to. So what does a committee do? If the committee recommends a bill, it is voted on by the entire House. So it's gone through the subcommittee puts it up for a vote by the entire committee. The Agriculture Committee all says, okay, this is good, we recommend this bill. So they send it to the House of Representatives. The committee will then say, we approve or disapprove of this bill. We think it's a favorable or an unfavorable bill. If they think it's unfavorable, sometimes they just don't ever send it. That is, they never vote on it. They never make any decisions. It's pigeonholed, and it dies. A bill that's never made it out of committee cannot be voted on by the House. But if they pass it on with a favorable, or even if they pass it on with an unfavorable, which might happen with a discharge petition, it will then get voted on by the entire House of Representatives. While it's with them, they can amend it, they can change it, they can combine it with others, or they can simply say, do you know what, we like this bill, but we're going to throw it out and we're going to kind of write something that's similar to it. Committees have tremendous power to do all of those things. All right, floor debate and what happens outside of a committee is what we're going to get into in part B of this lesson. This was just on its introduction and committee. So I will see you next time, and farewell.